One of the things that most business owners don't realize, especially those bigger, faster growing companies, is how many millions of revenue is just sitting there waiting for them to be realized on a monthly basis. And through a series of different marketing tests and processes, we can realize that and bring it to the fold pretty easily. So every single week from starting today and going forward, I'm going to pick out one of those faster growing companies that's doing really well, making seven figures or more in terms of that revenue. And today I'm going to provide you an example of one that I came across, 1 year no beer, where I see $5 million or more in revenue that's kind of hiding right underneath their nose that they can easily realize with a few different tests, a few different tweaks to their marketing process. And as they do that, they're going to be able to impact even more people. And in my case, what really stood out with this company is they have a really positive message of getting people and changing that relationship that they have with alcohol. So really impacting people's health, the relationship with trauma, and kind of changing how they have that relationship with stress as well. So I'm going to kind of break down various different opportunities that I see kind of hiding in plain sight. It's not a company that I've worked with, so I'm making some assumptions, and I'll make some of those assumptions there. But I do have some of their numbers in terms of overall goals and what it looks like. So that will kind of bring it to life for people in terms of like, okay, what is the revenue opportunity here? What are they potentially missing out on? And what are those various different steps where if they did a little bit more testing, if they made a few subtle tweaks, how can we start to realize that revenue that's really sitting right underneath their nose? They're already spending money on ads. They're already getting leads coming through. If we can just realize and bring more of that to the table, get more people in front of their sales team and interact with some of those people that do get on a sales call with them, but say no, and realize them and bring them into a high ticket perspective, that can make all the difference. So this is the first time joining one of my lives. I'm Brian Czekanski, and I help coaches, companies, and experts, in particular, 10x their high ticket programs. And that, how I do that, I'll kind of bring that through. I'll use 1 year no beer as kind of an example of kind of the different ways that I can add value, bring some of this revenue, and make it realized. Again, it's kind of hiding right under their nose. A few subtle changes. So again, even if you're not a 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure company, of those examples that I'll cover over the next few weeks, these will be brands that you might not know of, other brands that you are very familiar with. But I'm going to break down their marketing, various different ways of like, okay, like these are lost opportunities, and we bring these opportunities. Maybe we don't fully realize all the opportunity, but even a small percentage can make a big difference in terms of their top line, and ultimately can flow through to their bottom line, as well as they consider ad costs and all those kind of things as well. So let's kind of jump into it. And I'll kind of talk through a little bit more on how, like in doing my analysis, you give a better sense of how I can help companies 10x their potential high ticket programs, and how I might be able to do for you, even if you're a 6-figure coach, 7-figure company, whatever it is. We'll go through each of those different areas along the way, and I'll show you all the ways that you can kind of unlock some of these things, especially from a high ticket perspective. So anytime I talk about high ticket, it's primarily those 10K and above type of price points, but it could be a 5K type of program that you have out there. And typically the companies that I work with have an email list of low ticket buyers. Maybe you have courses, maybe you have challenge. In this case, with 1 year no beer, they have a series of different challenges that I'll show you in just a second at a low ticket perspective, getting people into the door, starting to change their relationship with alcohol. And once they've done that, they get them into their higher ticket type of program, introduce them to that, and kind of move them up along the way. But they're certainly trying to, even if you're not a past buyer, even if you haven't gone through that challenge, how they're trying to go directly, take people from a cold audience perspective directly into their high ticket program, which is 10K in this case. So I'm just going to share my screen, kind of give you a little bit more about what this company is all about. And then we'll get into the various levels of where the revenue opportunity is that they could quickly realize and do some testing around and things like this. So to give you a little preview of what 1 year no beer is all about, in terms of when this company was first started, they kind of presented themselves as kind of like an alternative to rehab. And as they did their marketing and everything else, they kind of realized that, hey, like some of our customers here, like could be corporate executives, they could be entrepreneurs, kind of those high achieving type of professionals that are kind of using alcohol as a coping mechanism for the stress that they're going through, or anything that's going on with life, and they realize that whatever level, maybe they're not alcoholics, but they've gotten to the point where they know that alcohol is holding them back in some way. So you can see here just kind of the list of, from a low ticket perspective, what that challenge looks like. They've got 3 different challenges of trying to get people in the door: 28 days, 90 days, and a 1-year challenge. So you can see the price point here: 59 pounds, 109 pounds, and 250 pounds. So pretty reasonable in terms of like that price point to get in the door. They'll go through, build that community. You'll get some advice from them, and again, start to see and change your relationship with alcohol. Once we kind of take away alcohol from your life, how's your health going to improve? How's your mindset going to improve? And really thinking about like, how can we start to address maybe some of those stress or trauma that you've gone through in the past, and all those kind of things, like kind of a like almost like a low ticket sample of what their bigger program is all about, which is a 10K program where they get much deeper into dealing with stress and doing some of that nervous system regulation, and putting specific healthy habits in place so that you don't have to reach for that alcohol at the end of the day to sleep better at night, all those kind of things that a lot of people use it for. So let's kind of hop in. So like, again, like, this is not a company that I've worked with. I'm going to make a series of different assumptions as I go through their funnel, and I'll call those out. But I do have, I was able to kind of look at some of their goals that they have, especially in the next year. And those goals will be really helpful in terms of like thinking about like, okay, what's the revenue potentially sitting here on the table? They're probably not doing those numbers, or maybe they have half of that. We'll kind of go through that right now. So it might be not realistic of where they are right now. But as we think the longer term strategy of this company, which is growing really quickly, getting more and more publicity, getting more people through the door, that revenue impact is only going to grow of those missed opportunities that go through that. So let's kind of go through some of the goals. Again, 1 year, no beer, in terms of what they're looking for. So again, their high ticket program is called Complete Control. Like the price point there is 10K. So again, I don't know what their price point in terms of goals might be. Maybe they're looking to increase that, keep it where it is, whatever it is. So I'll just make the assumption that they're going to keep pricing the same. It's working for them. We just want to increase the amount of people that are going through that. So again, 100 people per month is really what their goal is. Again, I'm not sure where they are right now. It could be half that. It could be a 3/4 of that, whatever it is right now. But ultimate goal of 100 clients paying that 10K going forward. So it gives you an idea of the revenue impact. So again, they're looking for £1 million per month in terms of their run rate at the top level. And how they're going to get there. They talk about kind of the target of like 600 qualified appointments per week. So their sales team, not per week, like 150 per week, which equates to 600 per month that their sales team is taking on along the way. You'll see within their funnel what qualified mean is they do have an application process. So anybody that fills in that application, they can qualify them at some level and put that on the sales team. So it gives the sales team a little bit of knowledge of like, okay, where is this person coming from? And really being able to put that appointment on the right salesperson's schedule to increase that level of conversion if it's possible. So before we get to that, again, if you think about like that 100 over 600 equates to around 16.7 in terms of that overall conversion rate. Obviously there is a couple of different nuances in terms of that. So I'll go through each of those numbers, but their sales team is probably doing a little bit better than 16%, but there's other things to consider, like, okay, those people that book a call but don't end up showing up, that would also factor into the conversion rate. I think for this company in particular, that's a big factor in terms of like, okay, making assumptions around a typical sales team can convert at this level, but hey, think about all those people that are filling out that application, just not showing up, especially with this audience where we're going after corporate executives. We're looking at entrepreneurs, which are super busy. They have a lot of distractions, a lot of things come up, and for whatever reason, they can't just book, they can't show up for that call. So it's one of those audiences that the show up rate might be a little bit lower than normal. So I would talk about like the normal level is probably 75% of people showing up anytime you have an application or even just booking a call. Typically on average, what I've seen is around 75%. So in this level, it might be a little bit lower than that, but I'll give them the assumption of 75% of the people that fill out that application choose a time, they show up. So that's a factor in terms of that conversion. But their sales team is probably converting, again, making the assumption of somewhere between 20 and 25%. That's what I've seen for most sales teams across the board, especially if you got great, like if they're hiring correctly, and from all indications, this company is doing that. And then, looking at the cost side, these are just interesting numbers. I'm not going to factor it in as much as I talk through, but like cost per booked call, getting it to under 300 pounds from ads. And then their overall cost from thinking about like every time they acquire a client. So again, that 10K price point, they have to spend 2,500 or somewhere slightly below that to acquire a company. So it kind of just puts in perspective of like, okay, to get the right person in front of my sales team to actually go through my funnel, fill out that application, show up on that call, and be converted by my sales team. Like, hey, we've got to spend a good amount of money, and that's not unusual, especially if you got a higher price point. And you're spending a good amount of money. So not unusual in terms of that price point, but just kind of puts in perspective, again, some of the numbers that I was able to, just actually come from the company. So I thought those were just interesting as we went through. So let's actually go through, the funnels. So like most times, like what you'll see from a high ticket perspective is, I realized I wasn't showing you the slide here, but like typically what you'll find is like here's a high ticket funnel that you'll see most of the time. So a Facebook ad, again, it could be a YouTube ad, like whatever it is along the way. So they have a Facebook ad that goes to a webinar. In that webinar, they kind of do a lot of that pre-selling and putting the offer in front of you towards the very end. In this case, we don't have a full webinar. As you'll see in just a second, we've got like a really short video. It's kind of like a really short VSL. It's like 11-minute VSL that kind of presents, does a lot of that pre-selling, presents the offer, and gets them onto that next step, which is kind of an application. Once they finish that application, they're going to book a call and get to that sales call. So like one of the things that you should see and realize for every high ticket funnel that's out there is it asks for a good amount of your prospect's time. So again, like we are talking to an audience here of entrepreneurs, corporate executives that are time poor. They don't have, in a typical webinar that might be 45 minutes or an hour, they don't have that 45 minutes or an hour to watch that. That's why most webinar show up rates are quite low. It might be 25 to 40%. As you look at that actually see the offer at the end of it. And again, in this instance, I think they know that. They have an 11-minute VSL, so it makes it a little bit easier to kind of get through the offer. It's a little bit more clean. They have a lot of good differentiators in terms of their offer, so they don't have to, create a whole story around it. They don't have to create 45 minutes because, again, there's not a lot of comparable offers that are out there other than potentially going to rehab. And we know with our audience, they're probably not to the level of alcohol being a problem where they're looking to go to rehab. So it kind of fits that. Like, okay, we know alcohol might be a problem for you. It might be holding you back in some way, but not to the level where you have to go through a 12-step program or go to rehab, those kind of things. So they've kind of carved out a good portion of the audience, and there's not a ton, like there is other programs like them, but probably not advertising to the same degree or same strength of what they're doing with what 1 year no beer in terms of that. So the other part as well is we talked about this qualified appointments. If I just go back to this slide right here, again, thinking about those 600 qualified appointments per week, there's an application that I'll show you in just a second, kind of a series of like 5 or 6 questions to get a little bit more background on like where you're coming from, what's your income level, all those kind of things are really important to put the right person in front of the right sales team member to potentially increase that conversion rate. And then you ultimately get to the sales call again, but there's always going to be people that show up for that sales call, always people that don't. That's just a part of that as we go through. So let's take a look at like what their funnel looks like if I look at just from an ads perspective. So again, if I go into Facebook ads library, this is kind of the ad at the very bottom. They've been running the longest. Again, this only goes back to May 20th, 2024. So they're probably still doing some testing in terms of like what works and what doesn't. We can see here kind of like, calling out the audience, drink, sleep, repeat at the top here. I couldn't break the cycle. So kind of that testimonial type of intro to catch people's attention of like, hey, I know where you're coming from. You're going through this cycle. You can't quite break it. And then kind of getting into really quickly, all the downsides. So again, like waking up with no memory of the night before can be frightening. So talking about kind of like those embarrassing moments of like, hey, here's how you know alcohol is a problem for you because you're blacking out or you're going through these embarrassing moments. And they've got other ads that kind of call out other things other than blackouts, but in the same case, gets to the promise really quickly. So like we want to get to the point where we can take control of our life, and they put the offer right in here. So again, like complete control program. So a lot of times you'll just use the Facebook ad to just tease a little bit the opportunity. So again, as I think about like other stuff they could potentially test out is like the awareness spectrum of their audience. They're kind of in this ad kind of pointing to an audience that is a little bit more aware of their problem. So yeah, could they test a little bit further out in terms of like, hey, do you even know that alcohol is a problem? Can they call out certain things like blackouts and things like that? And just raise up the curiosity enough to maybe get a little bit more click-throughs to that next page, and maybe the landing page can do more of that work. So again, something to potentially call out. Like that's what I saw in a lot of their ads, in that they are putting the actual offer name and what it's all about in the ad. Sometimes you don't want to like something to test again, like something, and they might have tested it already, but like how can we increase the curiosity here? How can we catch people's attention without going through the whole process of kind of calling things out, going directly to the offer, what the offer is all about? Can we just raise the curiosity enough that they click through, get to that next page, and watch that video along the way? So again, just a potential opportunity there. Again, I wouldn't even include it in that $5 million in revenue that they could potentially realize a month. But again, something to test out in terms of that awareness level of their audience, of where are they in that spectrum, and how can we get people to the other side? And then they've got their founder here kind of talking a little bit about more about his story. So again, very effective strategy where you're kind of like trying to catch people's attention in the text. But we know certain people, if they're watching on their phone or things like that, they prefer to watch video. So you can capture people with the written text here. You can capture people with the video, get them to click through and go forward. Again, another thing that could potentially test is the founder has a really great story as well. They have two founders. So like both of those founders, again, can we weave in parts of their story to catch people's attention, to build that affinity with them and get them to the other side without potentially talking about the offer overall. Then we get to the next page in terms of the landing page. Again, super simple in terms of the headline here, in terms of what we're looking for. And then just a super simple, like I said, like an 11-minute video that kind of goes a little bit through the founder stories, what the program is all about, makes it super simple to get to this application. Again, a super simple application, multiple choice. I think there's probably somewhere between 6 or 8 different questions that I have here. Again, something else to test as well is like, hey, before I get to the page here, if I have a little bit more curiosity inducing ad to get more clicks to this page, would you put the opt-in beforehand here, like the application versus getting their name and email address before this video? So can you start collecting those people? Again, you're going to have a lot of follow-up of people that come to this landing page, and maybe this headline it doesn't catch their attention, or maybe they get distracted and they don't have time to watch this video. If you can get them as part of their email list and kind of continue that conversation, that's going to be helpful. So maybe people here, they watch 5 minutes of this video and they don't get to the meat of the offer, and they don't go down to the application page. Again, just something else to test. They might have already split tested this already, but you can still have the application here. You can still have some of that. Another thing I would test is like a quiz. Like, again, I think they have that on their website. Can we have a quiz as a potential way to get in there? And based on their quiz results, can we have a customized video that speaks to that unique person's situation? And then again, it could be 10 or 11 minutes, but if we have a more personalized, customized video, makes it more likely they're going to go to the next step in terms of filling out that application and ultimately getting to that sales page. And again, what we're doing is just taking the application and putting that as a quiz, gathering some information about people, and maybe you have 4 or 5 or 6 different avatars that fall under those quiz responses. Put a more specific video talking to their specific situation, what they're dealing with, how they're kind of losing control with alcohol and using it as a coping mechanism. What that's going to do is potentially raise conversions as well. And again, you're getting that email address on the front end before they even see the video. So you're going to be able to follow up with people a little bit more, potentially raise your potential for getting more people on a sales call with your sales team. So again, just tons of stuff that they can test along the way. Again, when I tested out, like one of the things I do all the time in terms of like testing out these videos is just like, can we test out the first 5 seconds, 10 seconds? Can we test out certain things that catch people's attention? That can have a huge impact in terms of conversion rates, getting people to fill out that application, and ultimately showing up for that sales call. So plenty to test out here on this page to potentially recognize revenue. And then once you get through the application and things like that, again, another thing to point out is, here's what the current options look like. So again, I'm a busy executive. I'm a busy, business owner. I don't have a ton of time. Maybe I'm traveling over the next 5 days. But here I've only got I've only got 3 options. So I've only got 3 days. So if I'm traveling over these next few days, like I'm kind of out of luck. And you can kind of see from a time perspective, they're not offering a ton of times either. So like if these times don't work for me, I'm kind of out of luck. So that would be another place where they might seeing a lot of fall off is like, hey, my audience is time poor. They don't have a ton of options. Maybe they're traveling over the next few days, which is a pretty logical type of thing. And you're not offering any dates in July or the rest of June. Again, they've probably tested this as well, but like, hey, if we increase the options that are out there, or just maybe put, you can put a button here that says like, hey, if there's no options, like if none of these times or dates work for you, contact this or hit this button, like whatever it is, just giving people additional options because again, they filled up that application, they're ready to make that booking, but just nothing works for them in terms of their schedule. And the assumption should be like, again, we're going out to an audience that's time poor and we're asking for our time. So you can see here, the sales call that they're allocating is an hour. So I've already watched an 11-minute video. Now you want to allocate, now you want an hour of my time, which I probably can't give you. Again, we're potentially losing sales along the way. And that's really the problem with a lot of high ticket sales funnels that you have out there is they're asking for, again, at least an hour, if not 2 or 3 hours, especially if you have a longer webinar, which doesn't really fit with their time poor audience. So again, this is how my process can kind of really fit in, kind of complementary. Like I only want to deal with those leads that, again, maybe filled out that application, but didn't book a sales call. Maybe they booked a sales call and they didn't show up, or they got on the phone with your sales team and they said no, or not the right time, or any of those things. So we'll go through those specific numbers in just a second, but I want all those leads that your sales team has kind of given up on. And most sales teams will give up on leads, especially if they're running the ads to the level that this company is running at. They're probably going to give up on those leads somewhere between 15 days or 30 days because they want to be dealing with the freshest leads, the most motivated people along the way. Whereas I want to start a conversation with those people all via email or SMS or DM, where I'm not asking for their time whatsoever. It's like whatever time works for you to respond to my email, that's where I want to get into a one-to-one sales conversation. And I can really kind of start the whole process over again. So like, again, in their video, they provide a hook that they probably tested that they think works well. Like what I'm going to do in the emails that I send out to the leads that, again, your sales team has kind of given up on is I'm going to take a different slice of that. I'm going to take my best after talking to your current customers and past happy customers, getting a better sense of why they joined their program, what really hooked them into that. I'm going to take a different slice than what your existing funnel is saying right now. And I'm going to catch a certain portion of your list's attention. And I'm going to get them to respond to that email. And once they respond to that email or DM or SMS, I'm going to engage with them in a one-to-one conversation. I'm not going to jump on any sales calls whatsoever because I don't want to ask for an hour of their time because they probably don't have that. So they respond to what makes sense for them. I respond back when it makes sense for me. Some of these sales conversations can take over a period of weeks, especially if you have, again, for this audience, they might be traveling, they've got a busy schedule. I'm going to continually follow up with them, engage them in a sales process. In the same way that your sales team would jump on a sales call with somebody, I'm going to qualify people. I'm going to get to know what their motivations are for, in this case, changing their relationship with alcohol and moving forward. And then thinking about like, okay, how do we move them forward and eventually putting the right offer in front of them. But what I can do is because I don't have the time pressure of like, okay, I've only got an hour of your time. I need to get to a yes or no at the end of that sales call, is I can really take my time and take a look at each person's qualifications and the words and the phrases that they've given back to me. And over time, really building a relationship with them back and forth. Again, like I might spend more than an hour going back and forth with them over a series of 5 to 10 emails, getting a sense of what their situation is all about, what they're struggling with, why are they turning to alcohol for their stress, or any of those things as a coping mechanism. And I can personalize this offer specifically to them. That's how I can kind of that's how I can re-engage a lot of these leads that the sales team has kind of given up on, and kind of taking a second look at them. So like a second slice. So if we go back to this page right here, we go back in terms of like those potential costs. So like our cost to book a call of around $300 from ads. Like you think about all those lost leads, we're paying $300 to get them on the phone. If they don't show up for that call, we're out that $300. So it's a way for me, like, and that's a sunk cost for most businesses, but it's a way for me to come back and re-engage that person that might have booked a call. That's a very motivated, potential lead, re-engage them in a process and get a return on investment for that $300 that you might have spent on ads. And again, thinking about that cost to acquire a client, how do we get that below 2,500 pounds? Like the easiest way to do that is to go out to your pool of leads that you've already given up on and start converting those people. How do we start to get their return on investment? How do we re-engage those people that maybe opted in for your ad a year ago or a few years ago? Re-engage them in a process, start to get that return on investment. And that's kind of like additional revenue that's kind of sitting right there in front of you. So again, super important to do that. How do we get that cost per client down? Easy way to do that is to take advantage of the assets that, again, your sales team has given up on, but I have the ability to kind of re-engage them in a process that doesn't ask for any more of their time. I don't jump on any sales calls. I just re-engage them via one-to-one sales conversation when it makes sense for them. So again, and that's kind of the flaw of that typical high ticket sales funnel is I'm always asking for more and more of your time, and especially for this audience, they just don't have that time to potentially give you. So like, let's make it a little bit more, let's make it easier for your prospects to become clients, and let's work based on their schedule instead of trying to dictate what works for us. Again, I get scarcity, I get urgency, and I use that in my process, but we don't we want to do it based on everybody else's schedule. And by doing that, you're going to get much more people, make it a lot easier for people to come through the door. So instead of 100 people signing up for your program, that's where we can get 200, 300, 400 people in terms of this complete control program coming through. And again, these are leads that we've already paid for. We've already paid Zuckerberg, $300, 300 pounds to get them potentially booked on our calendar. Like, let's take advantage of that money that we've already spent along the way. So again, as we think about this potential funnel, like, again, I'm just using assumptions here. So somebody, again, there's potential to test here. How can we get higher curiosity in terms of the Facebook ad to get people to watching that video on the next page? Again, I make the assumption that, again, it's only an 11-minute video, so it's pretty safe to assume that 40% watch that video and eventually start working on that application. You're obviously going to have people that fill out a couple questions of that application, they give up on it. Maybe they don't want to disclose something that's in there, and they give up on it and they don't go through. So again, that's part of that process as well. Like, maybe they watch the video, maybe they watch it all the way through, they're sold on it, but they don't want to go through that application. They don't want to disclose information. And then again, like, there's only going to be a certain percentage that actually goes through, fills out that application, and books a call. So we talked about the book the call. There's not a ton of options out there in terms of dates and times. So that's a headwind as well, again, for this very busy audience. So I say around 25%. Again, I'm making an assumption of that, but you can see how, again, we're losing people at each stage of this process. And if we can kind of re-engage them along the way, with potentially testing out maybe an opt-in before they get to that video or that landing page, that allows us to re-engage, again, another 60% of people that maybe didn't watch the video or fill out the application. Again, in my process, I have that ability to reach those people, and that's revenue kind of hiding in plain sight. And then again, when we get to the sales call, they booked a sales call. Yeah, it's a fair assumption. I don't know where this company is at, but it's a fair assumption around 75% of people show up for that call. There's easy ways to increase that show up rate. one of the things that I always do is how do we build up the value of that call? Even if they don't buy your program, what are they going to get out of it? Do they get a series of couple different bonuses that might be worthwhile to them? How do we make it a no-brainer type of opportunity? So we're obviously selling a program on the back of that sales call, but how do we kind of think of the sales call as like its own separate offer? So even if they say no to our offer, what is the value that they're going to come away with that they find really valuable? And this is where kind of like knowing your audience, like what are those 3 bonuses can we potentially put out there that our audience really craves for? Like even if, again, if they spend an hour with us and they walk away with these bonuses, like they feel like that's a no-brainer. Again, it takes some testing to figure out what are those things and kind of interacting. Like one of the things I would go back to is like my past happy clients or current happy clients, like going out to them and just saying like, hey, would you be interested? Like if you were going to start the whole process over again, like would these bonuses potentially be helpful for them? And kind of using the like, again, use your current audience because I know like, again, they've probably had hundreds of thousands of people go through their programs and challenges and all those kind of things. Like you have that audience to potentially survey, figure out what are those bonuses, those like more tantalizing type of bonuses that makes that sales call really an attractive offer just to show up for. So again, even we can get like that show up rate from 75 to 80 to 85%, like how does that materially increase their potential revenue along the way? And then again, it's a fair assumption that most sales teams are converting anywhere from 20 to 25%. So I put it at the assumption here that 25% of people are becoming a client here. So you think about the other 75% of people that are joining sales calls that are, again, there's revenue there. Most people just kind of give up on those people that say no, or it's not the right time, or it's not expensive. In some cases, they might have been just matched up with the wrong salesperson, or not having a great day, or again, they might have been busy with 100 different other things and it just wasn't the right time. I have the ability in my process to re-engage that person, take a different approach, take in a different hook, maybe better understand what are those objections, what are those questions that they might have had. I don't have the time pressure of like, okay, our 1 hour is up here, I've got to move on. So like there's no time pressure for me to put somebody under the gun about, and that might make the difference between them saying yes or no. Or maybe they just have to talk to their spouse. Again, this is a 10K type of program. Maybe they have to take that additional time to do that. So again, as I think about in the red, like all these potential opportunities, the revenue kind of hiding in plain sight. Again, we talked about like just testing out some other Facebook ad copy in terms of like where's the awareness spectrum. Again, like I can tell you that if I test out different things that I've worked with companies across different industries, I'm sure I can use some of those structures and get them more click-throughs to that landing page at lower cost if we tested out some other different ad structures as we go through. Again, other ways we can test out, instead of that 11-minute video, can we convert it to a quiz? Can we get that opt-in a little bit further up? And that 60% of people that don't see the offer, that don't fill out that application, can we engage with them, at least get them on our email list? And that's where I can engage them in this process as well. Again, thinking about those people call booked, the 25% that schedule a call, but like think of those 75% of people that fill out that application and again, get to that page where they couldn't find a time or a day. Those are people that I can engage with again and kind of restart the whole process with them. And again, kind of the biggest part here is like we've got those motivated people that actually show up or don't show up. So again, the 75% show up rate. There's other ways to kind of get that 25% that didn't show up for the call, the 75% that say no on the call. All those different things are potential revenue hiding in plain sight. So again, if we go back to kind of the goals of 1 year no beer, who's growing really quickly, spending a good amount of money on ads, pushing people through their process. There's plenty of different split test opportunities to realize some of this revenue along the way, but I'll kind of just point out a couple different here. Like the biggest opportunities I see here is like, again, you have 150 people that are never showing, like in my assumption of that 75% show up rate, it might be higher, it might be lower, but it's a pretty fair assumption that 75% of that show up rate. So you have 150 people, if we're thinking about those qualified appointments per week that are going to the sales team, per month that are going through the sales team, 150 of those people are just never showing up for that call. So what does that equate to? If we were able to kind of re-engage with those people on a monthly basis, like that's 1.5 million in terms of potential revenue. It's not to say that we're going to convert all those people, but that's a potential opportunity there. And then the other people, like again, thinking about that's the 25%, 25% conversion in terms of that sales team. Again, it might be higher, it might be lower for their sales team, but 75% of people that are showing up for those sales calls are saying no. So that equates to around 338 people. Again, a 3.4 million pound revenue opportunity of, okay, if we we're going to follow up with those people with my process, which again doesn't ask them to jump on a sales call again or re-engage with them. Again, it might be one specific objection they have, or a question, or maybe just having a different hook at a different time, and maybe just not having that time pressure makes the difference in that. So again, not to say that I can realize all of that 3.4 million, but like that's the potential opportunity here. And you think about all those other things that I talked about in terms of their overall funnel that we could potentially split test. It's probably larger than that 5 million, but these are kind of like the again, this is revenue hiding in plain sight, testing out some few things, again, kind of bolting on my process to what they're already doing already. I'm not going to step on the toes of their sales team. I'm not going to take away from anything they're doing right now. I'm just going to re-engage all those leads that their sales team has given up on, get them back into that process. And what that's going to do is, again, it might not be that $5 million in potential revenue, but like that's the possibilities here. And if you think about that on a monthly basis, what that can do for this company, double, triple that in a matter of months, depending on what they're looking at. Again, thinking about that revenue opportunity of 100 new complete control clients per month. Even if they don't raise their ad budget, how can we get more from the ads that they're already spending? That's what we're going to try and do as much as possible. Optimize that return on investment, the return on ad spend they're doing right now. There's simple ways to do it as I kind of look from it on the outside. And then thinking about, like, again, as we're more successful and kind of just re-engaging the people that are falling through the cracks, like all these numbers are going to come down. The cost per book to book a call of under $300. Can we get that to $150 by just kind of re-engaging people that fell through the cracks? That cost to acquire a client, can we cut that in half? Can we get that down to $1,000? What's that going to do for the bottom line of this company that is selling a 10K type of price? Can we potentially test out a new price that is out there? And again, with my process, because I'm engaging with them one-to-one via email or SMS or DMs, like I can gather and start to figure out, like, okay, like what are the 4 or 5 or 6 different avatars that we have here, and what are the words and phrases that they would describe the problem and where they want to go, and changing their relationship with alcohol. What do they want to achieve once we can kind of lessen their influence and alcohol kind of holding them back? I can feed that all back to the front end and start creating ads that are a little bit more segmented and a little bit more personalized to those, again, 4 to 5 to 6 different avatars that you have out there. What's that going to do? It's going to catch more people's attention. It's going to speak their language. We can create landing pages that speak more specifically to different segments along the way. That's going to increase conversions along the way. That's going to increase the amount of people that are filling out applications and showing up for the sales team. And I can feed that back to the sales team as well and saying, like, hey, based on the applications that we're seeing, based on the, I can improve the application as well. As like, hey, we've got 4 to 6 different segments here. Like, let's line that up with the application questions so that once people do fill out those application questions, we can easily find out, like, okay, this person fits within bucket number 1. Let's make sure that we route that person to a specific person on our sales team that specializes in talking to avatar number 1, that knows the exact words and phrases that they want to hear echoed back to them, knows the exact objections and questions that they're going to have, and is able to pre-sell some of that and get in front of some of those things. It makes a huge difference in terms of that sales team conversion. So maybe, if they're converting at 25%, now they're converting at 30%. Again, those small, even if it's 25 to 27%, like, makes a huge difference from the top line perspective, makes a huge difference from the bottom line perspective. So much to test here and potentially split test along the way, but you can see the possibilities in terms of, using some of these numbers that I was able to glean from the company, but also thinking about their growth. Like, again, this is a company that's doing really well, has a really distinct offer that's out there, has an audience that is kind of struggling with this problem and needs some help. And you can see, like, even if you're a much smaller company and you're not doing the level of ad spend of this company, like, easy ways that you can start picking up this revenue that's kind of sitting in plain sight. Even if you're not engaging with somebody like me and bolting on that process to engage with those people that your sales team or even you have given up on. And again, I would say that anytime I work with a partner, I don't ask for any upfront investment. I very much prove that I can get you the high ticket clients that you're looking for. So I take away all the risk, I take away all the upfront investment, and I prove to you that my process works. Because again, there's a lot of skepticism like, hey, there's no way without a sales call that you're able to close 10K, 20K, 30K clients. Happy to prove it to you for the right partner. Obviously, don't work with everybody, but it's worth having a discussion, especially if you have a sales team, especially if you're taking the sales calls yourself. How can we start to engage all those people that are falling through the cracks all along the way? Again, you can see it just in the last 40 minutes that we went through here. There's plenty of stuff to split test, and you can use that information to improve your front end, get even more people coming through, increasing your sales call conversion rates, and getting more people into your programs where they need to see that impact, and lowering your costs along the way. So again, I'll be doing this every single week. Let me know in the comments below. Is there a specific company that you'd like me to break down in terms of like the $1 million of like millions of revenue that is hiding in plain sight? Happy to do that. If you have a suggestion, maybe it's your own company, maybe it's a popular brand that you have out there, I'll go through their funnel, kind of break it down and show the possibilities of potentially split testing things, how my process can potentially gain them further revenue. Again, we just provide an example today. Again, in plain sight, I can see $5 million per month that's kind of sitting there of potential conversions that are out there that is going to potentially change the trajectory of this company, lower their costs pretty dramatically. As I get into higher, like there's plenty of higher growth and higher revenue type of companies. The numbers are only going to get higher, like the multiples of hidden revenue that's right under the nose is going to get even easier as we go through. So just keep that in mind as we go through there. If this was helpful in terms of a breakdown, hit like on whatever platform you're watching on. If you're watching on YouTube, again, hit hit notification bell. So anytime I come out with these breakdowns every single week, you'll be able to see it. And with that, I'll see you on a future live.